Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever the time may be for the showing of this segment of the topics of the town news. Today is a report that I'm prepared for you, and I've attended the Water and Sewer Commissioners meeting, which was on June 20th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. And I will be presenting the business meeting of the Water and Sewer Commissioners for the town of Danvers. Now, the agenda itself is very harmless, and what it does is basically what you'll see in this portion of the report is the um, business community relations and the business of the water and sewer as it functions in the town of Danvers. The commissioners are very well informed. They are presenting a very businesslike meeting. However, one of the things that I have determined from my reporting in the prior years is that they need a little attention from the general public. There are very few residents that come to the meeting and hear what actually transpires in regards to our water supply and our sewer disposal at the Salem plant for the town of Danvers. Now, in this report, you'll see that the retained earnings for both the water and the sewer are slightly or somewhat higher than expected because the water and sewer department is basically a public entity. It's a company in itself, supported by the fees and collection of the costs for supply and disposal of our water. Now, the follow-up meeting to this will be showing you the rate setting FY 2025 Water and Sewage Public Rate Hearing, which will be starting at 6 p.m., which will be a separate segment of this report. And that is the report where you need to understand what this is all about. The retained earnings that have been accumulated are being kept in separate accounts for emergencies. Now, we all have emergencies. We all have retained earnings or our savings account, but there's a limit to how much money you can put into those accounts. And what I've expressed at the meeting is the retained earnings is much more than legally allowable for a company of this extent and this service to the town of Danvers. So what I'll do is we'll show you a brief, or well, it's a complete presentation of the meeting, and the meeting will conclude in about 45 minutes, and then we'll go into second segment for the rate setting, which is the important part, and that we'll get to in a few minutes. So sit back and enjoy the meeting, and then wait for the next segment, which will have the rate setting included. Thank you very much, and enjoy the presentation.
Just a reminder, tonight's a two-part meeting, a regular meeting, and then we'll break and open up the public hearing on the rate. So kind of a two-part process tonight compared to all of our other meetings. So we'll jump right in. Item number one, we need to approve the minutes from our previous meeting. on May 9th, 2024. I believe we sent those all out electronically to us ahead of time. So if there's no questions from the board, anybody?
No questions.
I'll entertain a motion to accept those minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes accepted. Item number 2 is our financial update. Angelica, over to you.
Good evening. So you guys have the financials for the month ending May of 2024. I did take a look at the numbers again today. So we're getting close to the end of the fiscal year. So if that's okay, I'll report on what we have for cash and sales through the 20th of June. Our actual sales were at 88.2% for water, which is 112 million cubic feet. Our cash, which is very important because we need that to fund the operating budget as approved last spring, we're at a little over, almost 10.1 million, so that's 103.5%. The operating budget that was approved last May was 9.7. So we've made our cash to fund our operating budget.
Congratulations.
It was a tight one. We are still down from last year in both our cash and our sales, so that's just worth noting. We're seeing that trend continue. And then our sewer sales, through 6/20, we were at 89.7, 91.1 million cubic feet. Our cash receipts, we have approved 6.7 million for the operating budget. We're at 7.2 million, which is 108%. So we've made our cash to fund the sewer operating budget as well. That's a little bit more, so our sewer sales are a little bit more in line, but they're still trending downwards. So our cash, you can see the increase in cash is due to the modest rate increases. But volumetrically, and I believe too as part of the rate discussion, we'll discuss it, but you guys were given a usage table. And you can see, I think that was in the packet.
It's definitely the one that.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, I saw the email.
Okay. I just have so many papers, I'm sorry. Obviously, some of the sales are weather driven, but we're seeing them just trend downwards year after year. Are there any questions on the?
So you think that's the conservation or the weather or?
I think it could be a
restrictions?
handful of things. I think, definitely conservation ties in with it as new building code is enacted. You're implementing like the low flow toilets and the efficient appliances. I also think it's very weather driven. Last summer in July and August we had rather wet, cool summers, so we didn't sell as much water. This summer we haven't, we're just hitting a heat wave, right? So we might see some increase in sales over the next couple months, but we also need to be mindful because there's going to be the water restrictions as well.
And what do you think's driving sewer down?
I would have to look more into that. I mean, sewer is hand in hand, a lot of it's directly correlated with water,
With
right?
water,
So
yeah.
if the water usage is down, the sewer usage is gonna be down as well, because we bill off the sewer based upon the water usage. I think more people too, they're becoming wise, and we see the new construction, they're installing the deduct meters or the irrigation meters. So it certainly benefits us if someone wants to use irrigation outside and does not have a deduct meter, but for the people that are using the outside water and have the meter in place, they're not getting charged for sewer for them.
Okay. Anything else from your end?
No, I don't think so, not at this time.
Anything from the board?
So, what do we, I know we plugged in last year's for June, what did you say what we were at right now for June? For usage, sorry.
It
Very,
would be
very, very question.
the June water usage would be 11,
Around 11.
yeah. So it'd be it'd be 11.2.
We definitely will be.
So hopefully, so we do still have part of this as well, and I should mention this. We have cycle 11, that's our biggest billing cycle. We have cycle 11, 22, and 33 that are billed quarterly, the residentials. 11 includes all of our Middleton customers and Danvers residential. Those bills get issued next week, so those volumetric sales aren't included. We've only billed commercial through this month, so I expect that number to significantly increase, but we do need to keep in mind Middleton, we're only billing them for water, not sewer. But this is the water use history table, so. I can, after we issue those billing cycles next week, I can email an update to Lee to provide to the commission for your review, because I know that we do not meet historically July and August.
Where do we stand with Middleton? Did we negotiate the new contract with them, or are we still operating under our old contract?
We're still operating under the old intermunicipal agreement. We haven't negotiated a finalized agreement yet.
Well, talks have started, you guys
Talks
have
have started,
negotiations, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, I remember the prior commissioner talking about it, but I just haven't heard an update in a while.
They had, we had an initial conversation with David and Steve, myself, going over to their town administrator, but they had recently got a new town administrator since our last talk. So we need to follow up with the new town administrator over there and kind of rekindle that conversation.
So what was the expiration date of the last contract?
It's already previously, it's still ongoing. There wasn't an actual end date, but we did have set metrics to follow as far as water usage during certain periods of the years. So like that part has gone. We need to update those numbers because we only want up to like, just past 2010.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the board?
I don't.
Okay. Accept the motion to accept the financials.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Financials approved. On to our project update. Steve?
Sure. I'll start on the water side. So we, at our last meeting, I talked about the cottage sewer replacement that was done by Minnesota and Murray. That work's been completed, roughly at 90% completion. They have to go back there and then do some final testing and then paving the street. So that project's complete. Replace the sewer main. No more issues over there as far as any backups and having use our factory jet over there. So, good to get that project completed. The Summer Street generator project, we opened bids today. So right now, the apparent low bidder is going to be Dago Electric at about $227,000 for the new generator. So right now, we're just going through the process of reviewing the bids, making sure there's no mathematical errors. Going to do our bid review with previous referrals that we provided in the bid, and then from then on, we'll move into the awarding process.
Did that come in at plan or less or more than we expected?
Probably just a little bit more. In total, we appropriated $350,000 as far as our warrant article. So we have, but we were hoping to probably be in a little bit lower twos on the generator side. So that project intends, we probably won't actually see the physical generator installed probably till next year. But obviously once the bid awarded, we'd have the contractor start issuing the shop drawings to make sure they can get the product on the table for them to get delivered to Danvers. Also on the sewer side, we've been awarded the next comprehensive line project to In Situ Form Technologies. I know typically I've probably heard the name National Water Main that's been out there. In Situ Form used to be a previous subcontractor in National that since gone on broken away, kind of created their own little niche for being a GC. So they're going to continue on with our next phase of CIP lining of sewer mains, which again includes a little section of Locust Street and then over in the Seneca Road area.
The neighbors will be happy, so over there, Justin.
Which part of Locust Street?
We're going to be on Locust Street for a long time.
Yeah, I know.
been a while since we've been over there, almost 100 years, so.
Still
it's
waiting for
due.
the paving to come through. Those crosscuts are killing me.
That'll be in the updates for sure.
I've been putting those off for a while.
Yeah.
Only kidding.
And then, following that on the stormwater side, we're working on the Summer Street culvert replacement, so that's over by Strawberry Lane. We're gonna go through in front of Conservation Commission next week. And then hopefully have that project out, bid and constructed in this calendar year. Thanks, Steve.
So, Strawberry Hill, like across the
Yeah.
street, right by the, okay. I was wondering what was going on there, alright.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, the Summer Street generator project, that's at like the end of Summer Street, right?
Correct, close to
Second
the
last
restaurant.
driveway
Yep.
on the left.
Alright,
And that is a pump station, not to be confused with the water booster station that goes up on Summer Street, but which is
further up.
Delaware.
Yeah, yeah, in
by
front of
Delaware.
Delaware,
Yep.
okay. Alright.
No.
And then we're also still working through our permitting for the Adams Street culvert replacement as well, so that's part we're still closely working on.
And that's the project you did in-house.
That's project we are working on now, so correct. Also at the last meeting, SESD, they bid and awarded their contract for their generator replacement at Doty Ave or the Danvers pumping station. So again, they're working through that process of working through their shop drawings, start getting all the parts in place for ordering the new generator. But theirs should probably be here at the same time ours gets here. As much, obviously, the larger one, because that Danvers pump station takes all of the flow from Danvers and some sections of Middleton as well, so. Nothing next year. And that was it on the sewer and stormwater side. On the water side, Locust Street water main, I'm sure you've seen the message boards out. So we'll be starting phase 2 of Locust Street, which goes basically from Poplar Street, the intersection of Poplar and Locust, up to Cole Road. And then it also goes down Chestnut Street as well and connects back into Cabot where we ended with the Cabot Road water main replacement. So we anticipate the contractor starting next Monday with temporary bypass installation. So the overhead piping that feeds all the homes while we're taking the water main out. And then we don't expect real construction to really probably begin until after the 4th of July weekend. And probably 4 to 6 weeks worth of work for the contractor to perform that water main replacement.
So the actual like heavy construction with like complete road closures won't be until after July? you're
Yes, that's what we're shooting for, yeah.
At least school's not in session, right?
That's
Yes.
The whole point of those.
Yeah. Good call.
And obviously, just to follow that, we're obviously still at the paved Locust Street, right? So as soon as they're done with the water main work, we're just gonna schedule our millers to come in and reclaim, well not reclaim, but basically mill out 1.5 inches, full curb to curb on the areas that we performed the water main replacement on last year. And then pave that, and we're hoping to get that done before school goes back into session. But we'll also be tying in High Street with that same project as well. The water treatment plant sand filter cleaning project, that was sand filter number 3 in our recently expanded water treatment plant facility. We finished that project in late May, so that worked out great. Brand new, same media, but we actually used a panite cleaning product to clean out any of the debris and any things that kept the media from working like it's supposed to filter out all the contaminants from the raw water source. So clean all that, purge all that up through. Project that's been the most active as of lately has been the Lakeview Booster Station. So that was delivered last week and installed last week. We had to do we've done a few shutdowns in the interim to get it switched over to online, but we have, the new station is in the ground, it's built. We started doing our swap overs or cutovers today to the existing water mains. And then we're gonna start doing our tie-ins on the electrical side of it. So we'll start running the conduits and the power supply to the station for the new pumps. So right now, the old station's still in play, it's still being used, but we have the new station right next to it.
Is it the base of Lakeview?
It's at the base of Lakeview, yeah.
Okay.
Not
It's
to mention
all
we have-
underground, all
It's
the electric?
all the electric conduit piping's on the ground, there's gonna be an electric cabinet that's above ground.
Oh.
So once it's all connected, all in, you're gonna take the old one out or leave it there?
We're gonna basically crush and fill the old one. So we're gonna salvage all the components that we want out of the station.
Yeah.
We'll pop holes in the bottom of the floor, and then we'll crush what we can crush and then fill the rest in and impact it. And then I already talked about the for future improvements on Locust Street, but again, also that project also encompasses North Putnam Street and Chestnut Street.
What's the detouring gonna look like for that, out of curiosity?
Which section?
Of Locust down towards,
His neighborhood.
towards the town, no, center
Yeah.
of town, because I'm just trying to
The
think.
four-way works tonight, at the immediate intersections of night work. There's gonna be one lane for emergency vehicles at all points in time during the night work.
Right, yeah, we know that section, that since it's highly traveled and volume traffic, where we put in the contract to do some of that work at night.
Okay.
Once they get added, then it's confirmed enough the way closer to Chestnut Street, they'll go back to probably doing either just a road closure because of where the water main has to go.
Yeah.
But at that point, we would have to do the long detour again, where we set up, either bring people back from Wenham Street around,
Yeah.
or going through Worthington, back around the Summer Street. and
St.
back down.
John's and everything.
St. John's,
Okay.
yep. And then our final project, again, Oak Street is the long street. Phase 3 is we're finalizing the design of phase 3, which basically takes us from Worthington to Holly Lane on Locust Street, almost back out to Lakeview. We're about 99% done with the design. We just did some rock probing to make sure we properly account for any of the ledge that could be in that area on Locust Street. And then we hope to have that out to bid in the next month, awarded by the fall, and we're probably gonna end up pushing that project to next spring, depending on how the season goes. If it's a mild winter, we may get more done than we want, but right now we're forecasting early spring for that project. And just as a FYI to the board, I did present at Tuesday, the select board meeting on water supply and treatment to give the new select board members kind of an overview of how our water supply system works. So if you're interested in that PowerPoint, I can forward it to you guys as well too.
Great, thank you.
You want to talk about the trash
Oh.
showing up on
Yeah, I forgot to mention this during the financial report or other items of interest. The trash billing, that will begin to appear on the water and sewer bills within the next week or so.
And your phone will start ringing?
Yep.
What?
Your phone will start ringing?
Yeah, so we've already been doing, the billing for like the additional receptacles, but now the quarterly, trash fee goes into effect, so yes, the customers will start noticing that. Eric has been working with Jen Breaker on, getting a press release out and creating a special web page. My staff will have a nice meeting next week, just to remind them all and go over where you can find the information and where they can direct residents, to the resources, whether they wanna opt out, get a smaller barrel, or, find out about exemption. Well, the exemption list's already been approved for this year, but for next year, if they wanted to find out about exemptions. How could I forget?
the, been working on it very.
Yes, it's been quite the project.
Has the non-collectible issue died down? I know a few weeks ago on social media, people still complaining that barrels weren't getting picked up, or,
I'd love to say yes, but it's a hit or miss with Republic, and communication has been, I had 2 separate meetings with Republic on Monday about this very issue.
well,
And they promise you the world. And, but as I noticed today, Danvers is getting picked up today, but Beverly is not.
It's still a delayed day though, right, because of the holiday?
Yeah,
Right.
so they're, the guys are doing Danvers today, and Beverly, they weren't picking up. very interesting to see.
Is there any performance metric in your contract?
There is, so, yeah.
Have anything else to do?
Well, they have a 10-day period to get everything squared away. They haven't notified more than once, and we might have to bring it to another level. So we'll see. It's one of those
Yeah.
constant battles.
Okay. Steve, all set from your end?
Just one more,
Yep.
Chairman, it's regarding a pretty expensive study that we're doing right now. Mass DEP enacted the lead and copper rule last year, requiring all towns to do an inventory of every service that's part of the water system in Danvers. And we're required to know what's on the public side, that's basically from the corporation that ties into the main to the curb stop where we shut the water off. And then we also have to determine what the material is on the private side of the main, which is basically from the curb stop to the meter. So we roughly had we've gone through about 8,000 services at this point. We're down to the last 2,000, which we have to submit the inventory to Mass DEP by the end of October this year. So we're working through that right now.
Are you doing GIS, or are you guys physically looking at?
Everything.
We're physically going through GIS, any documents from our old meter replacement documents, we're going through the files here in the office, as far as work orders,
Factoring some.
factoring some, just to do some confirmatory samples to make sure that if we think it's copper because it was put in a certain meter, we're testing out that theory and having Scott and his guys go out and do a small test out to confirm that it's copper or if it's lead. Historically, the town didn't really have a lot of full lead service lines, but we did have a lot of goosenecks at one point. Basically, that's from the first piece that comes out of the main before it turned back over to copper or the iron pipes. That's it.
That's it? Any questions from the board?
I don't think I could probably take the whole meeting talking about the street.
It's a long street.
I'll spare you, I'll spare you.
Oh.
All right, I guess we'll, I don't think we have to vote on anything there. We'll move on to item number 4, discussion and recommendations of the 2025 water and sewer rates. Thanks in advance for that material the last couple of days. Helpful to go through it, and I guess Ronnie, it makes sense to turn it over to you.
Yeah, I mean, again, you have so as usual, the past few years at least, we kind of try to standardize the information we provide as part of this. So you have for both water and sewer, some projections based on some rate options for specifically how that would shake out in FY25. And then appropriately, blue for water and yellow for sewer. 5-year forecasts, again, similar format as we've done in recent years. I know, Mr. Chairman, we had a couple questions this morning that we were able to track down some answers on. I think one was on the capital outlay that was approved for FY25 for $220,000. So that's a $160,000 backhoe loader and a $60,000 estimated cost for a 3/4 ton pickup with plow. Those are both part of the budget process for the water capital outlay. In terms of the operating increase, part of it is the capital outlay, and then on the actual operating expense side, we had a $90,000 increase for carbon filter replacement with the goal of trying to replace 2, I believe, in 25.
2 a year.
2 a year, and then a $60,000 increase for sludge removal. Ron, or if you want to talk a little bit about that.
The sludge removal, we sort of had our contract ended shortly. They put in the notice that they didn't want to, they couldn't physically do it anymore.
They were hauling it to Maine, right?
No,
Oh.
to SCSD in Salem.
Oh, okay. That's
But
what also to me.
But the gentleman who ran the company and his wife, they were a team, be it health reasons or different reasons, they said they didn't want it, and then we went out to bid, and they wanted back in, but very unsure. But we went out to bid, the low bidder came back to, they bid on it, but the BMC group was the low bidder that came in, and they've been working since June? No,
Early time, right?
no, maybe it was April. No, it was April, I think. That they came in and took over for the company. But it was a significant increase to, what we had budgeted before for it.
So there's some of the big drivers on the expense side, and then in terms of projection, I think you had a question on water. Yeah, as you see for the 5 years, our retained earnings percentage is normally 10% minimum. We try to be a little bit ahead of that, just again, especially with declining sales. We're a little bit north of that, close to a little under 30% the next 5 years, and some of that's just the uncertainty over the next few years between needing to do a couple well rehabilitations. Obviously, there's discussion about the PFAS, as well as declining sales. So again, it's not necessarily that the system is in good financial shape right now. It's more that there's some very expensive unknowns over the next couple of years. So that was the goal behind trying to maintain a little bit larger of a retained earnings balance than normal on the water side. Sewer, again, it's projecting out our debt and our operating expenses and our capital projects, and then trying to maintain somewhat over 10% projection there.
I would just point out too, the capital projects beyond FY '25 are only funded at 50%. The small, Ronnie mentions it in his footnote, but that affects.
Yeah, so what I was trying to get at was, the way my mind was looking at it, and with no background information, was that the revenue was level funded year over year. The expenses, I was really trying to get to a clear number that said, everything being level funded, what's the true expense increase? And I couldn't get to that number, so I was wondering if ballpark what that would be.
In terms, are you looking from 24 to 25?
Yeah, just in the 1 year. I was just taking the 1 year look because, you know, I think the world's changing on a lot of fronts, and to look beyond a year can be a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
And you know, I know what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a 100-year-old system to sort of try and predict what's going to go on with a 100-year-old system. But I was thinking if that number is relatively small, right, why wouldn't we go pull it out of retained earnings, right? Because we've never done that, but this is thinking out of the box a little bit, right? I was thinking that we meet the 10% requirement right now, and if the balance is 1.7 million, and dependent upon what modeling wise we would pull out of that, I still think we're pretty well north of the 10%.
Yeah, so I guess, so we wouldn't necessarily have to, because your revenue is going to exceed your expenditure on the water charts regardless. It's more about backfilling retained earnings, funding the capital projects. So you wouldn't necessarily need to fill it from retained earnings, but you also, again, if you wanted to, if the thought was to hold the rate, that's essentially how you would do it. So versus you wouldn't appropriate out of retained earnings because you don't really need it because your operating is being exceeded by your revenue. It's more that you would just draw down more in retained earnings than you otherwise would.
All right, hold on, let me just make sure,
Yeah.
because I thought I saw a negative operations of about, I'm looking at one page, I don't remember, is it 353, 358?
Yeah, so it's negative because of the money we just appropriated at spring for the 864 water treatment plant rehabilitation.
Okay.
So again, it's not that your budget's out of balance, it's just when we're adding that in, if we want to get back to the same level we were at before. So essentially the negative, you could fund through, so I think we sort of try to curb that with a small rate increase. If you decided against the rate increase, that negative 358 would be a little bit larger, but essentially it would still just be drawing down, like you mentioned, the large quantity of retained earnings. Does that sort of answer the question?
Yeah, so does that make you uncomfortable or comfortable?
Both, no. I think on the sewer side, I would strongly recommend the 2.5 is needed for the forecast. If you're looking at 4s for the next few years, and again, like you said, there's a lot of variables that can change in the next 6 months, never mind 4 years from now. I think on the water side, if you wanted to hold the rates, my only caution would be with the unknowns, there is a chance that we could come back in a couple of years and need a larger rate increase. Again, we're not talking the large like we saw a few years ago, but there's a potential for that. But like I said, I don't think we're gonna die on the hill if you think that holding the water rates at 0 is something that makes sense for the board.
Yeah, I'm thinking if you held on the water, you still have the 1.7, right? on top of the 10%,
Yeah.
right? So that doesn't make me sweat at all. You know,
Was the 1.7 is what is forecasted if we increased it by 2%? So it would be different, right? The number wouldn't actually.
I thought that was the balance at the end.
So
of the
that would be if we did the 2% increase. So if you
Yeah.
wanted to look at it, again, if all these numbers, if we just nailed every assumption, which we never do, but if we did, that 1.7 is based on 2%. I think if you back that off, I don't have the math in front of me, I guess it's just the delta between the two revenues. So 160, so that 1.7 would only be maybe 1.5-ish. So it's still a healthy balance, but.
And then, again, I'm looking at what we were given last night, or a couple nights ago. So if I see the 358 number that has a budget deficit, right? I've got an accounting degree, so I know what a budget deficit is, so I'm looking at deficit now, so help me understand that again.
It's a deficit in the sense that you spent more than you made. However, all you're doing is not replenishing retained earnings like we had planned for the next 5 years. So it's not a true budget deficit. It's more of a, here's a snapshot of where we are. Next year we'll be a little bit down here. So, but in terms of your budget's still fully in balance, you're still projected to exceed your expenditures by revenue. It's just, you wouldn't replenish, for example, that 864 that we appropriated for that capital water treatment plant rehabilitation. You're not making all that money back, essentially, if that's one way to look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'm thinking there's probably some good PR to gain out of by holding the rate in a world where everything else is going up. And if I'm not hearing that's gonna really impact us from an operational standpoint, you know, I understand the rainy day thing too, right? I mean, if something disastrous were to happen, I don't think, I mean, you need to tell me, but I don't think we'd be hurting for where we would go get that money.
No, like I said, it's more, yeah, it would just be a question of, you know, again, I'm just random, who knows what happened, but maybe if 3 years from now it would have been a 4, now that's a 6 because we took the 0 here again. And that, even that is all a million assumptions baked into that, so that's all. But no, I think if the commission landed on 2.5 for sewer and holding the water rates even, I don't think, you know, from the financial standpoint, we have no objection to that.
Yeah, and I know the, you know, I say to people all the time that don't understand it, I said, that water treatment plant's a high fixed cost facility, whether you put 1 gallon through it or 1 million gallons through it, it's costing the same amount to turn the lights on. So, I get that part of it, and that, you know, my gut tells me, you know, we could probably live with that. What does your senior management team, what do you think the reaction to that proposal would be if we did 0 water and?
In 2.5 on sewer?
Yeah.
I think town manager would have no issue with that decision.
Board commentary?
Oh, good, you covered everything that I was thinking about.
Yeah, no, I think either way, if we have to increase, if it causes in 3 years a 6 versus a 4, hypothetically, with 1 million, like you said, 1 million points going into it, we're not doing as much of a disservice as we are, as some of our neighboring communities have done to their people. So it's not like a PD situation with 30% increases, so. I think we're, Colby, everything you suggested is in the best interest of our residents.
One other question, where is the retained earnings account, is that invested?
So that's in a non-interest bearing, that's actually a good question you brought up. So because that money has to be, well, first of all, we have only so many limited options we can invest the money. We can't, like, for example, put it into the market or anything. The most we can do is sort of an interest bearing or non-interest bearing. Historically, water and sewer retained earnings, because it needs to be liquid and can be appropriated at any town meeting, has been in a non-interest bearing account. But after that question you asked, I talked with Jill Summit, our treasurer, and there probably are some options for us to at least park portions of that money in some type of interest-bearing account. The interest does stay within the fund should it generate interest, so it's actually, it's a good suggestion. But again, we are still very limited because it needs to be liquid and because we have certain rules and procedure on how we can invest retained earnings funds, but there's some potential there in the future that we're gonna explore.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking something's better than nothing.
It's not,
Right.
yeah, absolutely.
And put it in a check writing money market, so if we need it, we can write a check on it.
0.1%, right?
Better than
Better
nothing.
than zero. Angelica, any thought from your standpoint?
No, I can agree with everything the finance director said. We've managed this responsibility for them for the last, at least a decade, if not more. If you guys are okay with the 6% increase in the next few years, that's fine. I mean, we did run numbers, I think we had that 12% increase one year. When we averaged it all out, if we did about a 4.5% increase a year, we wouldn't have needed that. But then again, with what you're saying, for the residents and for the maybe PR standpoint, if you guys are comfortable with that, I mean, Rodney and the rest of the team's comfortable with that as well.
Yeah, and
Especially with maybe the trash coming, you know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
kinda,
I mean, I was just, I'm not taking a shot at anybody, I was just at home looking at the numbers last night, and given my accounting background and my business background, it, something, there were just some basic questions that I sent off to, because that's what was going off in my head, so.
I would tell, like, I might ask Steve to chime in, because he's, you know, trying to get the projects up and running and future looking at numbers, and, you know, we've been lucky to get grants at times, and there's no guarantee on some of that stuff. So we do worry about future projects, funding wise, and keeping it all the 10%. And this could give some breathing room one way or another. But it is also not something that would be detrimental, as Rodney was saying, we've all talked about that. And sort of putting it on you guys to make that decision. But we wanted to give you the information.
So if 10%'s our baseline, where are we right now?
Well, coming out of a town meeting, we're always at least a little over 10%. I can try to pull up the number.
Yeah, just kind of, because I think here somewhere on the schedule it says the number that's in excess of 10%.
Yeah.
Are those ones you printed, Chloe?
These are the ones I got in my
Oh,
email.
okay,
Yeah.
alright, I think in the packet you have some larger ones.
Yeah, I didn't bring my magnifying glass.
So, that's it. My point was, planning wise, knowing that potentially money will be in there if, due to no huge major problems, it can make the planning easier and, you know, more expensive than.
So just to, yeah, so coming out of town meeting water, after the appropriation, had projected 23% retained earnings, and sewer had 14.5% retained earnings. But like we talked about, the idea is for it to be over that, because again, when we bring on new debt, we wouldn't want, you know, we just authorized a $9 million water authorization, you wouldn't want to come back and go, all right, that debt hit, now you need a 15% rate increase. So again, we try to phase the excess over that 10% based on what capital and debt service we have coming over the next few years, which is why we do the forecast. But yeah.
Just triggered a thought in my head. At town meeting, I got up and pushed for support for our truck.
I saw that.
Where's the truck in here?
That would be FY26.
26, all right.
So FY25, when we did our calculation, we factored in that SESD has transferred those funds over to us, so they'll close out to our retained earnings at the end of this calendar year,
Okay.
fiscal year rather.
That's the 7.5.
So we have,
Well, that's a 7.5.
yeah, and then next year you have the 675, as well as another piece coming out of the capital outlay. So
Okay.
we're showing both the revenue that we pulled from SESD this year
Yep.
and the expense of,
I
again,
remember
needing
that.
the back to truck again
Okay.
next year.
I'm very supportive of the truck. I've seen the truck in action. I've heard you guys talk about the truck, so I'm hopeful next year we can get the truck. Alright. So, any further discussion from anyone? Okay, I appreciate the two-way dialogue on this. It is a team sport. I guess I'll make a motion. Oh, no, can't do the motion. End the discussion, because we'll do it in the rehearing. Caught myself. All right, If there's no further discussion on item 4, let's move on to item 5, other items of interest.
What's up this one?
The parade tomorrow.
I don't have anything
Good
further
job,
to
Ralph.
add.
I want to look at it.
Just stick
Alright.
Perfect time.
Those two, just you. Yeah.
Anything else from your side? Okay.
All set?
Tom?
Anybody?
I'm just from the last meeting, we had the open house, which I think went great.
Oh, I forgot, yeah.
You know, the open house, we hosted May 18th, Saturday, so it looks like it was well attended. Great event, everyone was there.
Had a lot of fun there. It was my first one I went to.
Is that-
And the pictures were great.
It was good, it was a good time. The water and sewer department put on a excellent display,
It was very well received, it was nice, seeing the interaction.
along with everybody else from the DPW.
Actually, I'm sorry, I did have a question. You gave us a presentation, you talked about like the proposal for like the stormwater runoff and whatnot. Where are we at with that? Is that like,
So that's still in the, like a conceptual phase right now, we're still working through, like, putting together what a budget would look like, how we fund that, or, you know, what rates would be included in that type of fee and capital program, but that's something we got the stormwater asset management grant for, from SDEP. So now that town meeting appropriated those funds, we're gonna get the grant, we're gonna start that work probably mid-August,
okay.
start looking at that.
And so like any program where a resident would be being charged based on their,
Impervious
their
area.
their impervious areas would be, is that like a FY like 26 type thing you're gonna be going? Like, potentially?
Good question.
We don't know yet?
Yeah, there's
Okay.
gonna be a few, it'll take a few public meetings to really go through that and vet out the pros and cons and make sure it's a solid program that we can set up and be successful with, so. Do we wanna accelerate it that fast in FY 26? I'm not sure that's the answer, but I think as we go through the process with our consultant, we can take a look at that and build up a better timeline.
Okay.
And I think it's safe to say there's some communities that are kind of gonna be the guinea pigs ahead of us. That,
There's already a few, there's already, I think,
Brookline.
about 20 or so communities that already have.
kind of really watching those communities to see what happens and is it
I know my
successful?
sister lives in Milton, they have a stormwater utility fee that they have to pay. I believe Wellesley just passed theirs at their town meeting. Bellingham has one, so there's a lot of
It's
communities out there.
happening,
Yeah, I know about Milton. I ski with somebody and they were telling me, I just got this big fee assessed. Maybe she was explaining to me. I was like, oh yeah, I know about it.
So the Fed's gonna do a cookie cutter thing, or the state gonna do a cookie cutter thing, or is each community able to customize it as they see fit?
It would almost operate effectively as an enterprise fund,
Huh.
right? So you have each community would set that up as its own separate utility, much like water and sewer. So when we have projects that we have to fund culvert replacements, or we have culvert breaks or drain pipe repairs, we have a program or assistance from a utility type set of enterprise that we draw those funds from.
Okay.
Do the motion to adjourn and start the other one?
Anything else from the
Anyone
town?
else? Anything from the public?
You omitted the public in the beginning.
Seeing if they want input now.
Meeting's not closed.
The what? Okay, fine. I'm Mark Zuberek, and I've attended these meetings in the past, and this is a rate-setting meeting, so you're gonna have another session right after
Right after
this.
this.
Correct. The one thing that I noticed in your discussions in regard to the retained earnings, and the retained earnings not just for the water, but also for the sewer. And as you know, in the past, I've always asked the question about what effect will any of these expenditures that you're planning for town meeting, how that's gonna affect the rate for our ratepayers. And none of that happened this year. But what I'm hearing right now is that the retained earnings, and I appreciate your comments in regard to using the existing funds that are in your back pocket already. We cannot accumulate more than we can handle or we should be handling, because the residents are having a hard time paying their bills. And as you see, the current plan is to incorporate another fee onto the water bill. You're going to have an explosion of comments coming back from the residents already, and the rate does not look like it needs to be increased for the water, because you have plenty of money hanging around waiting for emergency, which may never happen. Same thing with the sewer. The sewer is slightly different, but the residents need a break on that as well. You've increased rates over the last 3 years consistently. So we need to take a little bit of a step back and see what those rate increases have accumulated. And what I'm seeing from the retained earnings and the percentage that's being held back is adequate, and it should be considered in this rate. So that's my comment, but I'll come back again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Anything from your side?
No, I'm Bill Hayes, I'm the chair of the light board. I just thought I'd attend the other enterprise meeting, enterprise fund meeting, just for what I could learn. I just did this when I first got on the board a long time ago. And I thought, well, it's about time to go again. and See what's changed.
Welcome back.
Thanks for coming.
And we did not synchronize, did we?
No, we did not.
All right, so at this point in time, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is officially closed.